excuse me, just waiting for all of the sites to come up and so that we can begin. I know I'm probably about 30 seconds early, but I just wanted to make sure that we were streaming live at this particular time. I also need to make sure that I share this where it needs to go, and then that way we can do what we need to do. Our prayer is that God is sustaining and keeping you during this Christmas season. I've talked to people, I've listened to many who, for the most part, are really struggling with this time of year. Give me just a minute. I want to make sure that I have this up, and that's why I'm a little early. I want to make sure I got this right so I can bring in OBSC into the mix as well, so we make sure we have all of our sites up and running. And again, I shared it earlier in the when I was sending out the hey Keisha, how you doing? I'm gonna have to move something here so I can see you guys as you get on. Laverne, good evening. How are you? I was dealing with I guess I was just in my studies, in my preparing, because I never ever just prepare one thing. It's how my pastor trained me to make sure that I never found myself in a position where I did not know what to do. That I would have a plethora of good evening. Hey Carletta, how you doing? Hey Keisha, how's your husband doing? We've been praying for him. I know you had given me the update on it, but let him know again that we're praying for him and with him. So, and as I was looking at this, I was prepared to go into T.D. Jakes' book. I was ready. I was ready to go. I had it all together, and during my devotional time is when the Lord arrested my spirit. And Maria, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We went through some cold. It's gotten a little warmer, but it don't worry, it's coming back. And so the Lord took me back to something else, and I said, I don't understand why was this even necessary? And then the Lord took me back to a place in my own life where the struggle really was. And when I talk about the struggle, I'm talking about a depressive spirit. And if you don't mind, for those of you who can you just share this? Because I'm praying that what we're going to discuss and what we're going to look at will be a blessing to those who tune in. And good morning, good evening, Minister Jenkins. Lord, geez, I'm so used to seeing folk in the morning. So share it out, so that people can be a part of what I believe is going to be a blessing. And so, sometimes in the midst of all of your preparation, God took me back to Tony Evans' book, that says it's not too late. He's in the hospital. Okay. Oh man, look, I'm excited. Keisha's husband. Hey Kim, how you doing? Keisha's husband, William Dunn, just had some major surgery done, very similar, hey Sabrina, to what I had done, and they are in the room now, and wow, I don't have words for that, and so hey Denise, hey Terry, and so because I'm bouncing between sites so that I can make sure at least I say hi to as many people as I see. And so when I looked at it, the Lord said, I want you to take a look at something, because this is a season of depression. This is a season where people are you have to think. I need us to think about this for just a moment. Hey Goalie, I need us to think about if you were in a position where you had children and you could not provide anything for them. If you were in a position during this Christmas season where your kids go to school. Hey Thea, how you doing? Your kids go to school and they're around children who are excited about Santa Claus and all that other kind of stuff. But your children, your children don't have anything, and here you are trying to be a good parent. Here you are trying to do the right thing, and no matter what you do, you appear to be a failure. Now this doesn't mean that your children think you're a failure, but the enemy turns around and convinces you that you're a failure. Can I go a little bit further? This is a season where, and I shared it in the earlier promo that I did, when people die during holidays, it becomes a benchmark of consistent reminder that that person is no longer there due to the fact that the holiday is the benchmark for them exiting earth into eternity. You got to deal with that. Then you have to deal with just the fact that people who used to be in your life are no longer there, and it leaves a horrific void. Hey Anna, it leaves a void of hey Roberta, of an unbelievable magnitude. And so when you look at all of that, and everybody out, you can't go anywhere. You everywhere you go, the roads are packed. Every store you go into, people are just out there doing this, doing that, doing the other. And here you are struggling with this feeling of insignificance. Here you are struggling with, why is this happening to me? And the next thing you know, life has taken on a totally negative persona. Life has taken on something that just isn't working right. It's not gelling. You don't feel good. You start faking the feeling. Every happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and we get that little phony look on our faces as if everything is just fine, but it's not, because you're hurting. You're hurting because who you believe God made you to be isn't manifesting itself. You see quite clearly. Good morning, Minister. Good evening, Minister Thornton. Lord, I'm sorry, I keep saying good morning. And so all of these things start happening to you. And then let's talk about getting older. Let's talk about the aches and pains of life. Let's talk about some of the medical issues that many of us have to deal with. And so we go through these changes. We deal with these issues. We work with the pain. We try to deal with that. And the more we try to deal with it, the less successful we seem to be. And I need us to understand, in no uncertain terms, one of the greatest tricks of the enemy is to get you bent out of shape during a holiday of celebration, to get you bent out of shape during a time when we should be rejoicing over the fact that this is the season that we celebrate the birth of our Messiah. And so all of these things are tricks of the enemy, but how do you handle it? How do you keep these moments from handling you? I've had a couple of bouts myself where I'm going, everything is fine. And, I've had some bumps in the road and a couple of things. And some days just don't feel like getting up. Some days you don't want to do nothing. Some days it looks like everything is out of control. It looks like somebody else is in control of your life but you. And every now and then, the enemy will convince you that even God doesn't want to be bothered with you. God seems to have forsaken you. And so when I was doing my studies and when I was looking at what I was going to do, Minister Walker, how are you? Praying for you. Want you to know that God will bring you through. And I was looking at that, and the Lord dropped into my spirit that it's not too late. He took me back to this book that I did a series of preachings on. Hey, Daryl Johnson, how you doing, sir? Took me back to this book, had me looking at this book again, and I hope to deal with two people tonight. I want to deal with Moses, and I want to look at this, and I want us to catch something, because you got to remember that there was a scheme and attack against Moses even before he was born. That the king that didn't know Joseph made it up in his mind that what he was going to do and what he was going to say. I hope this is a blessing, Thea. I'm dead serious, okay? During this holiday season said, it's so true, much needed help in ministry and counseling during the holidays because people are struggling. This is the hey, Laverne, this is the particular time when suicides are astronomical. Now, somebody might say, well, that's other folk. No, black folk killing themselves too. And so, and you know what? Let's be a little sensitive about the issues that people go through, because many of us are very judgmental when we're on the outside of something we're not participating in. But how would you react if you don't know how to deal with pressure? How would you react if you don't know how to handle what's going on and it looks like everything else is handling you? Hey, Cora, how you doing? So, one thing that I've learned is you kind of have to get up off that high horse of super spirituality. And you need to recognize that the only reason you ain't thinking about putting a gun in your mouth, the only reason that you're not thinking about swallowing a bottle of pills is the fact that God has kept you. And so, Harriet, do you understand what I'm saying? God is keeping us even when we don't want to be kept. And so Moses has found himself in this position. The funny thing about it, and we talk about this story and we look at this story. Hey, Minister Owens, how you doing, man? I'm pouring my heart out into this thing. I'm trying not to cry because, there's been a series of things that have happened that's just messing me up. Hey, Cynthia, how you doing? And so it's like, how much more is going to happen? What else is going to go wrong? And so, you struggling with 'tis the season to be jolly. Okay? Fa la 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 la. Yeah, because it's like you don't want no fa la la or a la, because you're trying to deal with some things. You're trying to make sure that your mind and mentality stays where it needs to be. And so there you go. I know I got a couple people out here that are talking about he's a keeper. He's a keeper. He's a keeper. Now, some of y'all don't know nothing about that because you ain't never been there. You don't know what it feels like. You don't know what the struggle is. And so that's the reason why I told y'all, share this, because this might not even be applicable to you. Share this on your phone because somebody who's in your realm of relationships needs this teaching on tonight. And so when we look at this, okay, when we look at this, and so Moses, there was an attack against him at birth. but God provided. God provided that his own mother would nurse him. And so he was raised in an environment of prominence. He was raised in an environment where he wanted for nothing. He was raised where everything around him was at his beck and call, until 40 years later, one day, all of a sudden he decides to go and to visit the workers. And you got to remember, and maybe this is there you go. Thank you, Laverne. Share this. Get this out on your phones to other people, because you've got somebody in your sphere of relationships that they're not even talking to you about this. Because who wants to talk about being bent out of shape? Who wants to talk about being depressed? Who wants to talk? You saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. You ain't supposed to feel like this, but these things happen to all of us. And that's the reason why we need the Lord to create breakthroughs in our lives so that we can break through. And so we see that the Egyptians decided that they were going to be hard taskmasters, and it was funny. It was funny. They thought that the more they made them work, that the less that they Elder Carter, the less they would multiply, the less they would become prevalent. And the very opposite thing happened. The more that they were oppressed and suppressed, the more of them popped up. And so the next thing you know, they said, well, let's just kill them all. Well, 40 years later, after that scheme didn't work. Hey, Carolyn Williams, how you doing? 40 years after that scheme didn't work, Moses, who does not look like an Egyptian, who carries none of the identity of an Egyptian, he looks like a Hebrew. But because of the house that he was born into, all right, man of God, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I just, because it's my heart right now. And you know, all of these things are happening, and he sees the injustice. He sees how his own were being mistreated, and he reacted to it. And he reacted by killing the Egyptian and burying the Egyptian in the sand. And he buried him, and he looked around, and he didn't think anybody was looking, anybody was paying any attention. But the problem is, I don't care what you do, somebody's paying attention to you. And so the next time around, the two Hebrews were fighting each other. Moses comes along and says, why in the world are you fighting your brother? And they turned around and slapped him in the face. And they said, hold on, partner. You can't tell us what to do, because we just saw you kill an Egyptian and bury him in the sand. And so the next thing you know, Moses is like, oh, I got to get up out of here, because if I stay here, I'm going to lose my life. And my daddy going to kill me. Pharaoh going to take me out. And so he runs for his life. And yeah, Pharaoh went after him. But how many of you know that if God is on your side, and I just need a couple people that can just affirm the fact, if God is on your side, no weapon formed against you can prosper. But look at what happens to him. Look at what takes place in his life. He goes from prominence. He goes from being in charge of everything. He goes from having people at his beck and call to being out on the backside of the mountain. He don't have any place to lay his head. He is all bent out of shape. He doesn't know what to do. But see, here's what you've got to recognize, and here's what you've got to see, that even though you may have moved from what you were originally birthed to be. That's some powerful stuff right there, because God, in his infinite wisdom, did not make a mistake in bringing me into this season. And here's what you've got to hey, Mike Wallace, how you doing, man? Want you to know we praying for you and with you, and we thank God for what he is doing in your life. Just take it one step at a time. Y'all excuse me, but I need to talk to some people. I need to interact with some people. Mike Wallace has gone through some very harrowing situations with his health, but God is a keeper. I'm trying to tell y'all, God is a keeper, and the testimony is the fact that they're popping up here to let us know in no uncertain terms that they're still here. And so He's on the backside of the mountain, and all of this is going on. He doesn't have a friend anywhere, and he sits down on this well. And when he sits on this well, these women come along, and in the midst of them coming along, the men begin to taunt him and tell them to get out of the way. And Moses shows up. Did you catch what I said, Taya? Moses shows up. Okay, I got you, Mike, man. I got you in prayer. Cynthia, I got you. I got you in prayer. And so the thing that must be understood is that even, because, listen, everybody makes a mistake. Everybody does something stupid. Everybody does something wrong. And what happens is when you recognize that the wrong you've done is impeding your future, you start to change your mentality to think that just because you've messed up, okay, God is working. See, don't, Mike, don't make me holler. I'm supposed to teach. Nobody knows what a miracle is except those who have had miracles. Ooh, I'm feeling, as the old preacher used to say, I feel my help coming. So, in the midst of this, he meets Jethro, rich man according to his culture, Jethro. And because of him protecting his daughters, Jethro brings him in and offers one of his daughters to be Moses' wife. Well, let's look at this. 40 years of prominence, 40 years of being in control, 40 years of having people wait on you, 40 years that no matter what you said, somebody was right there. Now, the next 40 years are totally different because the next 40 years has no prominence. You a servant. The next 40 years, you don't have anybody at your beck and call. If anything, you are at the beck and call of your father-in-law. 40 years. He's on the backside of the mountain taking care of some nasty, smelly, jacked up sheep. And in the midst of this, now he is 80 years old. I want y'all to look at this because I sometimes struggle with getting older and did I actually fulfill what God has called me to do? And what I've come to find out is age, you know, we say this all the time, ain't nothing but a number. The point of the matter is, whatever you have been preordained to do, it's going to happen no matter what age you are. It might take you a little longer because you're a little slower. But no matter what happens, you have to remember that God is in the business of making you into what he created you to be. I hope y'all didn't catch that. Did y'all catch what I said? God is in the bit. He takes every one of those mess ups, which, yes, gets in the way of your progress. Yes, gets in the way of what you're supposed to be. But it cannot stop you from being what you have been preordained to be. And so in the midst of all of this, we now see the call. Mike Wallace, he's a member of the Union Church. He knows one of my greatest phrases: delay is not denial. Just because it's delayed doesn't mean it's not going to show up. Can I get somebody to shout with me on that? I thank God that in the midst of my mistakes and my messing up, I thank God that he does not abort his plan for my life, because delay is not denial. Well, what we've got to look at here in this text, because again, he's struggling with himself. He's struggling with depression. He's struggling with knowing what his purpose is. He's struggling. And then all of a sudden he goes up on the mountain. And when he goes up on the mountain, he has a strange encounter. And again, if you understand the condition of everything there, Minister Sean, are you catching what I'm saying? I need you to catch this, because sometimes we all struggle with, will we get it done? I wish, because you know what? You look at where you are and you look at where you know you should be and they don't match. You know, but it doesn't matter what it looks like. What you have to remember is what God says it will be. And so in the midst of all of this that's going on here, make sure you share this with somebody. Get on here and share it with your friends, because I'm moving. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so in the midst of this, did you catch what I said, Kim? Sometimes God has to send you through stuff to prepare you for the greater stuff down the road. Well, he sees this encounter. This encounter is nothing unusual. It's nothing strange. They've always seen bushes on fire in the arid area because of the heat. But the problem is he runs into this bush that burns but not consumed. He runs into this bush and he begins to approach it, because as he approaches this bush, he gets some instruction. And the instruction is to take off his sandals, because where he is holy ground. And as he gets those instructions and he approaches this, this is when God, 80 years later, unbeknownst to him. Now, because you got to catch this. You got to catch this. And I missed it, and I should have said it, and I didn't. God did not pre-announce to Moses what he will be. He just birthed him. But what he was to become was already in him. Y'all, okay, Kim, you caught what I said? Okay. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? Nisi, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying about the frustration? Hey, Valerie, the frustrations that take place when it looks like some things that God told you was going to happen seem to be slipping your grasp. And what you don't understand and what you're not recognizing is God uses every one of your blunders, every one of your mistakes, every one of your missteps to order your steps. I'm shouting right there. I'm shouting. You get that, Harriet? Did you get that? All right. Did you catch that, Cynthia? Nisi, did you catch what I said? These are the things that we got to recognize. Daryl, do you understand what I'm saying? You got to recognize this stuff. And all of a sudden, Moses has this encounter with God that did you catch that, Jaleesa? Are you catching what I'm saying? You got to catch this stuff, because you got it. You got it, Taya. You got to catch this stuff, because when you by yourself and you don't have no other source of motivation and nobody's speaking life into you, nobody is saying anything positive about you, and you're looking back over all of the things that you have messed up, and you got less time now to accomplish some things. Okay. You got to remember that it doesn't matter where you are chronologically, as long as you're in the will of God. That's all that matters. And you got to catch that if you don't catch nothing else. Because if you don't catch it, you will die not living out what God has preordained for you to be. Did your mom catch it, Jaleesa? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. See, that's a trick of the enemy, is to get you to believe that it's over and it's just starting. Ooh. Sometimes there are some things that you can't do until you've gone through some seasons. You wondering why some people are blowing up. You wondering why some people are losing their minds. You wondering why some people are doing this, that, and the other. It's because they don't recognize. You catch that, Laverne? Lavernon, did you get that? Cora, did you get that? Minister Thornton, did you get that? Anna, did you get that? I'm waiting for Nisi to say something. You ain't said nothing, girl. I want to know, did you get it? Here's what you've got to recognize. Minister Walker, did you get that? Harriet. God created us to live. God created us to prosper. God created us to have influence in the... Sylvia Harrison, did you catch that? Lady Harrison, did you catch that? Y'all got to get this. Y'all got to get this. Jeanette, you got it? Okay. All right. You got to get that. Here's the thing, and the reason I keep saying Carletta, you got it? The reason I keep saying you got to catch that is because you've got to know that. Because you're going to have some moments. You're going to have some times when you're not going to be online with me. You're not going to be in a Bible study with me. You're not going to be in a morning worship with me. And if you don't catch it, nobody else will. Why do you think that the encounter between God and Moses does not have an audience? Lord, there's no audience there. It's just God. Did you catch that, Linda? It's just God and Moses, because there's going to be some times, Minister Bridget, there's going to be some times when it's going to be just you and God. Did you catch that, Carolyn Williams? Denise Freisen, did you catch what I said? There are going to be moments when you are walking through what God has preordained for you to be, that you will not have an audience of encouragement. You will not have people around you to let you know or to cheer you on or to tell you that you're doing a good work, that you're accomplishing it, and you're going to be battling between depression and your purpose. And you need to remember that whenever you know without a shadow of a doubt that God has preordained for you to be what Minister Sarah, did you catch that? You've got to know it for yourself. Because there's going to be encounters that Moses is going to have that the audience will turn against him. Let me press on. I got excited. You got that, Mike? Mike Beverly, you got that? You got that? So, woo. Woo. Okay. Let me. Okay. And so Moses is having this encounter with God because after 80 years of life, out of 80 years of feeling that maybe it's over and this is what I'm going to be the rest of my life, God steps in with a miraculous move of him and says, now you are ready to walk in your destiny. So let me get to the rest of this. So he miraculously has an encounter with this bush. Hey, Chris, hey, man, you catch me, man? I'm praying for you, man. Your career in boxing, man, you're going to be something, man. You're going to don't let what appears to be a temporary setback, don't allow it, because sometimes a setback is a setup for greatness. I'm speaking prophetically. I don't know what done got a hold of me. I don't know what done happened. So here's what you got to look at. When you look at the encounter that Moses is having with God, and let me be redundant in saying it again, there will be days when it will just be you and God. Then he goes through all of this other stuff. He goes through all of these other myriads of experiences. You know, he sticks his hand in, it comes out white and all that kind of stuff. He throws the stick down, scares himself to death. All of those things start happening to him, but it does not stop his commission. Even in the midst of doubt and unsureness, Moses is now motivated to move, but he's still got a problem. And I'm going to talk about that for a few. I'm trying to get to the next person. How many excuses do we use for not accomplishing what God has called us to be, because previously in the process, we begin to develop low self-esteem. We begin to develop inadequacies in ourselves because some things in our lives didn't work out perfectly. We didn't have the perfect marriage. We were not the perfect parents. We are not the perfect grandparents. All of this stuff. Are y'all catching what I'm saying? All of these things the enemy uses against you to keep you from living the way God would have you to live. Vernon, did you catch what I said? I still didn't hear nothing from Niecy or Lady Harrison or let me see here. Hey, Edgar, how you doing? Brittany, how you doing? I see I got some new folk on here. And so when we look at this, and I keep saying this because this has to get in your spirit, the lonely moments without anybody else have to be anchored in the Lord. So Moses comes up with all this mess. Well, you know, I'm slow of speech. Now, wait a minute. You were slow of speech when you were in Pharaoh's house, and it didn't stop you. You couldn't speak well in Pharaoh's house, but it didn't stop you. You didn't speak well when you were on the backside of the mountain taking care of Jethro's sheep, but it didn't stop you. And now all of a sudden, I like that, Willa. Yes, we do. Sometimes we buy other people's lies. We turn around and believe the crap that other people have said about us, have said we ain't nothing, we ain't never gonna be nothing, have said you'll never accomplish nothing, you're too dark, you're too light, you're too yellow, your hair too nappy, this isn't right, that isn't right. Hey, Faye, how you doing? Are y'all catching what I'm saying? We got all these doggone excuses. We got all of these reasons for not doing this, okay? I'm glad, Minister Walker, that you catching this and that it's really what you stand. I'm telling you, God changed. He shifted my Bible study to where I'm at right now. All of this kind of stuff. Yeah, tell you, I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. I'm too this. I'm too that. And then we annihilate ourselves. We destroy ourselves. And get this, Taya, while we're destroying ourselves, we are not concentrating upon the perpetuity by which we've been birthed in this world. And then what happens, we go on this wild chase for stuff that'll bring relief into our lives, and it don't work. I don't care how many people you lay up with. I don't care how much liquor you drink. I don't care how high you get. None of these things are going to satisfy the call that's in your life. I wish I had somebody here. Katrina, did you catch what I said? And guess what, Taya? We all guilty. We all guilty. We sitting back feeling sorry for ourselves. And what we don't recognize, the clock is ticking. And while we sitting on the bed, while we sitting in the couch, and we trying to find love in all the wrong places, and we doing this, that, and the other, and all that crap, the time is ticking. And then we don't need nobody. We don't need nobody. We don't need nobody else to annihilate us. We do it to ourselves. And so in the midst of this, he's 80 years old. I'm sure Moses thought it was too late because he's 80 years old. But God, did you catch that, Goalie? God had to use that 80 years of prominent leadership in Egypt, the 40 years of prominent leading in Egypt, the 40 years of dealing with nasty, stanky sheep, so that he would be prepared to deal with the psychological issues of an embattled and slave mentality people. I know y'all didn't catch that. I know y'all didn't catch that. If he, hey Gladys, if he, Moses, had not gone through those 80 years of preparation, he would have never been able to handle the inconsistencies, the proclivities, the off, on, in, out of people. Because first of all, you got to know how to lead them, and you got to know how to minister to them, even when they get on your nerves. And here comes Moses. God has spoken clearly to him. I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him I said, let my people go. And Moses, listen, you done seen the bush. God has kept you alive. You have experienced God face to face. You have been commissioned by God. And now you've come up with another excuse. Can I ask y'all a question? I need to ask y'all a question. Y'all gotta know what else? What's the next excuse? What's the next reason, Anna? What's the next excuse for us not doing? Why? Because we're not where we want to be financially. We're not where we want to be status wise. Man, let me tell y'all something. You ain't got to have money to be somebody in Jesus, and you don't have to be recognized to be somebody in Jesus. If God has preordained for you to accomplish something. Did you catch that, Kim? God always see, Kim, you got that. And I'm gonna say that when you was going through and I was showing you some things and doing some things in your life, little did you know that all of that was for you to be prepared to be where you are right now. Kiko, you gonna get rid of the excuses? Minister Sean, did you catch that? Wait a minute, I need to talk to Terry A, Anna, Faye, Lady Harrison, did y'all catch that? Y'all got to stop coming up with excuses. Listen, the 80 years of up and down for Moses prepared him for a specific ministry. Ooh, I didn't want to get into that. I really didn't want to get into that. You've got to quit trying to be everything. And you've got to start being the one thing that God created you to be. Did you catch that, Valerie? Roberta? No more excuses. Minister Bridget, no more excuses. Are you catching what I'm saying? You have to now develop tunnel vision, which means I'm not going to let something else drag me away from the one thing. Now I'm not talking about giftedness and all that kind of stuff. Here, did you catch that, Tate? Did you catch? See, here's what I had to learn. And I had to learn that I'm not everything. And I had to get to the point that I perfected the one thing so that I could do what the thing that God created me to do. Okay, now I need to move on because I'm running. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. And so what we see that's happening here, God commissions, hey Malia, God commissions Moses, and he comes up with another excuse. I can't talk clear. You was talking clear in the club. You was talking clear when you was getting drunk and high. Now all of a sudden we got a commission going on. And all of a sudden now you want to talk about what you can't. He said, God says, okay, I'll fix this. He said, you got a brother named Aaron. I'm going to send him with you. And he's going to be your mouthpiece. How many of you know that God will mess you up when you keep coming up with excuses? Y'all didn't catch that. Y'all didn't catch that. Y'all didn't catch that. So now because my battery's getting ready to run dead on my thing, but I know my lesson. Now, Moses has been commissioned. Now get this. Commissioning does not mean you will not meet resistance. Hey, Michelle, I see you on here, girl. I know Mike is on here as well. You got to remember, 80 years of preparation has prepared you to handle resistance. Hey, good evening, Minister Williams. Man, we praying for you, partner. Understand you got pneumonia and bronchitis, and in the name of Jesus, who is the Christ, we declare healing in your body right now. In the name of Jesus, we declare that the pneumonia be removed from your lungs. In the name of Jesus, we declare that a miracle of healing has taken place. And when you go back to the doctor, Minister Michael Williams, the doctor's going to be like, well, it was here, but it ain't here now. I just needed to do that. I needed you to catch that. And so he goes through these the myriad of plagues and all of those things happen, and all of a sudden it looks like every single time that it appeared that Pharaoh was going to let him go, he got mad all over again, until his madness landed in his house. Here's what you need to know. Thank you, Minister Owens, for agreeing with me for that. Appreciate that. Here's what you need to know. You don't have to get twisted, cuss out, go off on people who resist you. God will change things when the mess that comes out of their mouth against you lands in their house. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm about to shout up in here. I have learned to let people talk all the crap they want to talk, because somewhere along the now get this. You've got to be in alignment with the will of God for God to fight on your behalf. So when all of the plagues came in and everybody in Egypt kept saying, let them people go, every time you turn around, his heart got harder. He refused to let them go. He was on a mission to make sure that no matter what, they were going to stay there until he decides to speak death onto the people of God. And what he didn't realize is that he spoke death into his own house, because the blood still works. That's a quick shout right up in there, because you know y'all know the story. They put the blood over the doorpost and all of that. So, okay, tell Christine Thomas I said that's a shouting moment right there. That right there is a shouting moment. I want y'all to catch what I'm saying, because y'all see I'm fidgety, because you know sometimes in the midst of teaching something, you're teaching yourself and you're speaking life to yourself. I wish I had a couple people in here that understood quite clearly that every now and then you got to speak life to yourself. You got to tell yourself it's going to be all right. You got to tell yourself you will make it. You got to tell yourself that you will overcome. So when Pharaoh decides that he's going to speak death into the life of somebody else, that death showed up at his door. And when that death showed up at his door, you better shout through your sickness. You look, let me help you. That's the time to shout. You don't wait till the battle is over. You shout now. Did you hear me, Minister Bridget? Okay, I'm sorry. And so in this, the plague comes. Willa, did you catch that? In this, the plague comes upon the very person who calls themselves cursing you. The Bible says that with my eyes, I will behold okay, Cora. See, I'm trying to get y'all to understand something. I see you, Jaleesa. I see you, Pat. The shout is not when it's over. The shout is when you in it. And the reason you shout is because you know you win it while you in it. Oh, bless his name. I'm about ready to lose my mind. So, did you catch that, Cynthia? You will be more than a conqueror. You will overcome. You will know, Cynthia, that in the midst of all of this, God has something greater on the other side of this situation. That and I'm going to say something. I'm going to speak something to you, Cynthia. Maybe what they think they're going to do might not need to be done. That's all I'm going to say, because I know you don't want everybody to know all your business. But here's what I'm saying to you. Faith says, I'm going to believe God, even if I got to do it by myself. And so all of a sudden, there's a change of heart in Pharaoh, because now the very thing that he spoke or he thought he was speaking against the people of God, he spoke into his own house. And so the next thing you know, we see that the people of God are now leaving Egypt. And I need us to look at this. But you got to remember, you got to remember this if you don't remember anything else. It took 80 years of preparation for 40 years of ministry. Okay, y'all didn't get that. Our problem is we want instantaneous ministry without preparation. And what you've got to understand, we touching and agreeing on that, Cynthia. What you have to understand is you cannot handle that level of power from God until you've been prepared. I want you to think about this. Moses has the power to call things into existence. Woo, I'm getting ready. I'm about ready to run in my basement. Moses has the power of God. I hear you. Burger King ministry, they want to have it their way. I wish you'd say that, Willa. Too many people want Burger King ministry. I'm going to use that. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to use that. Cora, you better shut up, girl. Microwave progress. See, y'all getting it. Y'all getting it, okay? That's what I'm trying to get you to recognize and understand, okay? So, Moses is being given the power of God to speak what God speaks. See, y'all not ready for this. And see, did you catch that, Kim? Here's what you've got to see. In order for Moses to not switch positions in thinking that he's God, God had to send him through 80 years of preparation for him to know who God is. Because Moses possesses the power of life and death, and it's in his tongue. You need to catch this. When Moses speaks frogs and lice and plagues, he is actually going against the gods of the Egyptians to show the Egyptians that the God that they have been serving is no match to the God of the Hebrews. But the same way he speaks the beginning of things, he also speaks the ending of them. Okay, I got 6 more minutes. Y'all, some of y'all didn't catch that. Too many of us want to speak, and we have not been prepared, nor are we speaking what God wants us to speak. And so in the midst of this, Moses understands clearly what his position is. Well, as you know the story, and I'm not going to get to the second person because I want to talk about Rahab. What's amazing about this is, and I need us to see this, the children of Israel left out rich. The enemy wanted them out of their face so bad that they gave them the riches they had. Now, God also supernaturally got in the midst of their clothing and in the midst of their shoes so that they would not wear out. But I need us to recognize something, that while they were on their way to the promised land, the enemy was still prevalent. And in the midst of the prevalence of the enemy, the Bible says that God hardened their heart. And in the midst of that, Pharaoh gets together with his chief warriors. He did not send the poop butts. He sent the people who have the ability to annihilate everything they come in contact with to go after these Hebrews, because all of a sudden he remembers that the thing that built the nation and the people who brought prosperity to them were no longer in his control. And so he goes after them. As he goes after them, the people become afraid. Now, I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why they were fearful. They were fearful because they had not yet had the same encounter that Moses did. Because, see, you got to read the book to catch this if you don't catch anything else. They scream at Moses and they holler at Moses. And because, excuse me, and because of their screaming and hollering at Moses, he ceases to hear the voice of God. But let me tell you what it does do. It forces him to seek God's face. You got to be careful when success is around you, because sometimes success can create spiritual amnesia. Success can get you to forget who got you to where you are right now. And so in the midst of that, he seeks God's face, and because there's all of these things that are against them. There's all of this environment that's against him, the forest and the water and all of that, and Pharaoh's behind him. And even in the midst of a doubting moment, God gets between Pharaoh and Israel. But in the midst of it, they still scream and yell. Well, then God has to have another encounter with Moses, because now he acts like he's schizophrenic and can't remember anything. And God turns around and tells Moses, I really don't understand what's wrong with you. He said, what's in your hand? Here's another point, and I ain't got but a minute to go. Here's another point that you need to recognize. Quit looking for something else. It's already in your hand. I needed to let that marinate for a minute. You sitting up here looking for this over here, over there, all that kind of stuff. It's already in your hands. And so God tells Moses, stretch out your rod. When he stretches out his rod, a strong wind comes. And when that wind comes, they go across on dry land. God is still between Egypt and Israel. But there's still a problem. The enemy is still pursuing. Remember I told you that Moses has the ability to start and end things? When Israel gets to the other side and Pharaoh pursues them because he figures he can do the same thing that they did, God then says to Moses, stretch out your rod. And the same sea that God opened, God closed. Here's what I want to share with you, because my time is up. I pray that in this holiday season, Christmas season, that you will not forget that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you will not forget that even in the midst of not having everything you need, God still meets you at the point of your need. May God bless you. May he keep you, love you, each and every one of you. My prayer is that you become the men and the women of God that he has preordained for you to be.